So this episode made up for how the last episode was. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another Obi-Wan Kenobi review. Today we're going to be talking about the second to last episode, with episode 5. Where to begin? So, once again, it's a little more of a kind of a simpler episode, at least in terms of what most of the characters are doing. It's basically Obi-Wan, like how the last episode ended. Obi-Wan and the people who were at the Inquisitor base, like rescuing Leia, get back to, I can't remember what the planet's called, but it's the base where all those people are. And the Empire tracks them, and pretty much most of the episode is just trying to get all the people out. But basically, the Empire traps them in there because of hacking the robot, Lola. They end up using it to trap them in. So it's like, oh, they have nowhere to run. And then through most of the episode, or probably like half the episode, Leia is constantly trying to fix it, which I love, which we get the character from episode 2 back, the one who pretended to be a Jedi, and then he wasn't. We got him back, and that's pretty much most of what she does. Towards the end of the episode, she finds that it was Lola and fixes her. And that's pretty much most of that end in terms of trying to get them out. Some of the really exciting parts of the episode are when Obi-Wan and a bunch of the fighters are trying to hold them back. And then this is where we finally learn some more about Reva. And it was basically what a lot of us, including myself, had expected. Because everybody was like, well, how does she know who Vader is? And even Obi-Wan was like that, like, you're too young, there's no way he would have told you. Unless you saw. And this is what a lot of people, including myself, were speculating. That she was one of the younglings at the beginning. She was there in the temple on Coruscant during Order 66, and she saw Anakin and knew he was Lord Vader. And that's what so many people, including myself, had thought, and that really makes me like her character a lot more, because it also makes me go, that makes so much sense, because Vader is the kind of person, he does not tell anybody who he is. It's like, if they know who he is, then he either they are close enough to him, where like he wants them to know, like Luke, or even somebody like Obi-Wan. Even though he didn't really tell Obi-Wan, but I think he would have regardless, even if Reva didn't say anything, because of the fact that Vader would want Obi-Wan to know that it was him. So like, if in his head, Vader was probably like, he wants to kill Obi-Wan, but before he does, he wants him to know that it's Anakin under there. So, but regardless, like, the other people who, like, he could not care less for, he would not tell anybody who he was. Like, in comics, some clones, like clone troopers, I think it was before they turned to stormtroopers, they had like captured somebody, and that dude was like, what, you're hunting Jedi? You do know you're serving a Jedi right now. He is Anakin Skywalker. And the clones were like kind of taken back by this, and then Vader threw everybody in that shuttle out. And this was a shuttle high in the air. He just threw everybody out. So I do like how this episode kind of makes it to where it doesn't change that, where Reva found out on her own, and the reason that, she would have gotten away is because Anakin thought that he had killed her, which is something I really, really like. Now, personally, I would have preferred if we got a little bit of this in the last episode, because it would have given us a little more time to learn a little more about Reva. Even though we did learn a little bit more about her last episode, I personally really, really like that we've learned a lot more about her here, and it really makes me like her character a lot more. Just getting to learn about that, and hearing that kind of the whole reason she became an Inquisitor. And it also sort of gives us the reason why she wants Obi-Wan so bad. It's because she essentially blames Obi-Wan for what happened, because so many of the younglings were like her family. And she was basically like, where were you? Why did you not save us? And I'm just like, oh, so that explains why she has such a hatred for Obi-Wan. And it's something I personally really, really enjoy. And she became an Inquisitor and kind of wants to go after Obi-Wan, not just because of that whole thing with Order 66, but because she wants to kill Vader. And I'm like, okay. Again, I personally would have wanted this in an earlier episode, maybe, like, at least in, like, episode 4. I feel like episode 4, if we had learned some more about this, I think it personally would have really helped, like, improved it. But I still like that we got some here. I'm just happy it was not all dumped in the final episode. That much I'm happy about. But one of the, without a doubt, one of the highlights was the beginning of the episode and throughout this episode, the fact that we got what I was wanting last episode, even though it's not exactly what I was saying I hope we got, but it's still something I'm glad we got regardless. We get flashbacks to pre-Attack of the Clones with Hayden Christensen as Anakin and Ewan McGregor as older Obi-Wan with the mullet and everything. And oh my gosh, it was so amazing seeing that. Like, throughout the episode, constantly cutting back to that scene, even if it was for a couple seconds, I was like, I am so happy about this. Now, granted, the de-aging thing, like, they de-aged Hayden, of course, and Ewan, but it's still noticeable that Hayden still, like, he's like 40-something now, and the de-aging thing is supposed to make him seem like he's 19. So that part I was kind of like, okay, that's kind of noticeable, but at the same time, it was enough to where I was like, okay, I can sort of see it, and just getting to see this flashback was just so good, and it was every time we did cut back to that flashback, those were the best parts of the episode for me. It was just so awesome to see that. And seeing some more of the fight choreography that we got from the prequels was just... it was so cool. And then towards the end of the episode, where they all manage to escape, and then Reva tries to backstab Vader. And... oh, man, it was... oh, I couldn't, because Vader was so, like, he expected this. So he does not whip out his own lightsaber once. She's trying to attack him, and he's just using the force block at all of his attacks. He's just like, nah, I'm not doing this. But also right before that, he put one of the ships was taken off, the one he thought everybody was on, and he's pulling it down. I was like, I'm getting some strong Force Unleashed vibes, but just not for a ship that small, because for any of you guys who have played the Force Unleashed game, even though I haven't, I think it was the first one and the second one, where the main character, Starkiller, pulls down an entire Star Destroyer, I was like, wow. So, this didn't top that. But this was still really cool, because he's like ripping into the ship, and the next thing you know, there was another ship behind that hadn't taken off yet. That was just kind of like a diversion to get the other ship started, I believe, and then that one took off and left, and then that's when Reva attacked. Oh my gosh, it was so cool to see, and then seeing Vader just only use force moves to deflect all of her attacks, then take the Grand Inquisitor lightsaber, and then splits it in half, and then throws the other one to her, and then it starts becoming a lightsaber fight, and it's just like, oh, he's toying with her. It was so cool. And then, basically doing the exact same thing to her what he did as Anakin, because he was like, do you really think I did not remember, youngling? So I'm just like, oh, he knows. And then, what I really pretty much knew was going to happen as soon as I saw it happen in episode 2, the actual Grand Inquisitor walks in from behind. I was just like, yes, they couldn't, I knew they weren't going to keep him dead, but man, it was just like, I knew he knew it. It was the fact this was all just like a play from Vader and the Grand Inquisitor, I was like, oh my gosh, this episode was just such an improvement over last episode. Yeah, just seeing that. Now, granted, there was one kind of nitpick that I didn't have for this episode that personally really did bother me, when the other guy who pretended to be a Jedi, I can't remember his name, but it's like, he did have some funny moments in this episode where he's like, Leia, can you hurry up? She's like, I know what I'm doing. I thought that was funny. but he dropped one at like the communicator thing that Obi-Wan had given him, and he saw it drop. So a part of me was like, and then Reva ended up finding it, and it was broken. But a part of me was like, do you really mean to tell me he didn't run back and pick that up? Because I'm like, I don't know. That was probably my biggest problem with the episode. Was just like, why did he not just go back and pick that up? Because he saw it drop. If he did not see it drop, then it probably would have been a little bit. It would have been a little better. But he saw it drop and then just cut away, and then later on when Reva finds it, and it is broken, so it's like, okay, but I'm also just, I don't know. I think it felt like kind of a really bad, not bad, but a very weak way to show Reva that like something like Luke is on Tatooine. So I don't know. It's something I was very indifferent on that scene, but I mean compared to the rest of the episode, it doesn't ruin the episode by any means, but it does. It makes it hard to decide if this is my favorite episode, just because that was a scene that genuinely really, really bothered me. But that's pretty much about it. But yeah, just and one of the other characters who used the disguise, who was introduced in episode 3, played a big part in episode 4. Her death and the robot's death really were. It was a better version of what happened in episode 4 because we had time to learn about this character and like what she did, and then seeing her really sacrifice herself really. It was pretty emotional, just because again, unlike the end of the last episode, that character we didn't really get any. We didn't know anything about them. We barely knew that character. We barely heard them say anything, but we had enough time to spend with. I think it's Tala. I think it's her name. We had enough time to build a bond with this character and learn about them, so it made her death like actually matter. And yeah, aside from the whole dropping the communicator, this was still a great episode, at least in my opinion. Once again, everything I'm saying is just solely my opinion. If you feel differently, that's totally fine. But just keep in mind, this is how I feel about the episode. And personally, I loved it. I thought it was such a massive improvement over the last episode. And I am super, super excited for episode 6 and how it's going to end up tying everything together. Or at the very least, tying some stuff together and then setting up for season 2. Because I do believe a season 2 is in the works. I think. I might be wrong on that, but I am really excited for this last episode next week. So overall, I love this episode. It's tied with, I don't know if it's my favorite episode of the show. It's tied with episode 3. But even still, it's without a doubt, it's a contender for my favorite episode for sure. I need to think on it a little bit more and probably rewatch the episode. I might have to rewatch every single episode in preparation for episode 6, just to make sure that like I have my thoughts clear on this show as a whole. Because for the episode 6 review, it is going to be me, Jonah, and Logan again. We are going to beat up to talk about this final episode, and we are going to also give our thoughts on the show as a whole. So definitely be sure to stay tuned for that. Let me know what you guys thought of episode 5 down below. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Were you in the middle? I'd love to hear what you guys thought about it. Anyway, I will see you guys next time for that review. See y'all later, webheads.